Hey guys, welcome to the Lunge and Lift podcast. I'm Rob.
And I'm Ash. Rob, what are we talking about today?
Well, I thought we'd talk about some common myths. Now, when I mean myths, I'm talking about mainly gym myths.
Yeah.
Gym and fitness-based ones. So, you know, they come thick and fast, and especially for being in the industry for as long as we have. And, you know, there's all the myths about. So, I thought I'd pick up 4 myths that I kind of like the look of. And I wanted to kind of just dispel them, so we can we can have a little chat, see if you believe in common one way I think and otherwise. So the first one is this myth is worldwide, and I just don't understand how it's gained so much traction. But it's the myth that if you do not put your weights away, that you increase strength and gains. So basically, you just are bigger, stronger, and better by not putting your weights away.
Yeah, I've heard of this one.
I just don't get it. But what I have seen online is there's some PT anecdotal studies that state that if you put your stuff away, you actually get 5% increase in strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ideal, right? So that's all by just putting your weights away.
I've had some experience with this one actually. I think when I was doing my floor hours, my grip has never been stronger as when I used to
deloading those bars and stuff like that.
I mean, many farmers' carries, you wouldn't believe it.
But I think, you know, obviously having a little bit of joking about it, even though there is context to that, if you are a culprit, not putting your stuff away, not aiming this at you, but maybe I am. But we do need to start putting this up, because you've got to think about the person that has to then put that away. It's not necessarily the PTs per se, but maybe the floor staff and stuff like that have to put it away. That they might not train. You might hurt them. So you got to think long term.
Actually, one of my colleagues got tendonitis from doing it. Yeah,
really?
in Farringdon, it's such a big gym,
and
some people are so bad, you end up carrying 40 plus kilo dumbbells for 50 meters from one gym.
40 in one hand, 30 in the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Great noise imbalances.
And,
but yeah, no. So going on to the myths, on to say some proper myths. I thought the first one I really wanted to talk about was the fact that everyone looks the same when they move. So say I want to use the squat as an example. Yes, I power lift, and I think it ties nicely into say function. So on our last episode where we're discussing the function of something, so I look to move the most amount of weight possible with the bar on my back. Now there's 2 common options, which is say high bar and low bar. For those that don't know, high bar, it sits nicely on your traps, and the low bar sits a little bit lower down, more towards like the rear delts and across the back there. So it's going to be a little bit more of say a forward lean. So it's definitely a little bit more posterior loaded through the movement. Now, a real common thing is everyone's like, you see like the weightlifters on Instagram, the CrossFitters, a lot of CrossFitters all high bar squat, because they say it carries over to weightlifting, and so, which that's a different topic, because I think there's a real carryover for say low bar squatting into say sports like CrossFit and so forth. But based on this is the fact that we all should look the same when we move. Now, you've got to take into account of one, limb length. I think that's so important. Also then how skilled you are as a person to actually move in that weight up and down. Because so if we just touch on like the limb lengths, if you're a taller person, you're not necessarily going to be built per se to say high bar squat. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of tall people that high bar squat and they squat a hell of a lot of weight. However, if you're say a conventional athlete, say you like to just want to move as much weight as possible, then maybe a low bar squat is an option for you. Yeah. If it works mechanically for you. Now, what are your experiences with that?
Well, I think with squats, no one has a perfect squat. Like we've seen a lot of squats between us, and there's always something that could be improved. And depending on what that, like we said in the previous podcast, depending on what their function is, like why are they squatting in the first place? Is it because they're going to compete in powerlifting and they want to be able to squat the heaviest weight possible to just about parallel? Or are they squatting to strengthen their legs for life? Are they squatting to retain the ability to get in and out of chairs as they enter old age? Like once you've identified what their end goal is with their squat, then you can decide whether or not high bar, low bar, overhead squat, like what sort of squat is most appropriate for that person.
That's true, and I guess that kind of touches nicely on just like the fact that everyone will look the same. So if you talking about say a high bar squat, how I high bar squat compared to how you high bar squat compared to how someone else does, it's going to be completely different. One, limb lengths, but also just how we understand that movement, and if it feels right. feeling the movement is half the thing. Because if it doesn't feel right when you're, say, decelerating and descending down with the bar on your back, you need confidence to get that bar back up. And if it doesn't feel right, you're fighting a losing battle.
Yeah.
Whereas then, say, for someone like myself, I don't necessarily give low bar squatting to many of my clients and stuff like that, because I do think it's a skill that should kind of be learned. But because most people, for the general public, say, could probably get away with a good goblet squat or something like that, because do they really need a maximum amount of load on their back? Probably not. So I think, again, it goes into that thing of what is the goal of the individual.
Yeah.
But when he's talking about does it look the same, no. And most of the time it does depend. Just like everything in fitness, it depends. So when it comes to does your low bar compared to mine look the same?
Yeah.
No. Is that wrong? No. So if someone's telling you to do a high bar squat because you think it's truer to a squat, personally I'd go and tell them to do one. But that's just my view. So, I do think you should explore both ranges and make up your own decision rather than listening to someone else's version of what they think you are, because we're all such individual little butterflies, right?
Exactly. And I mean, if anyone says there's only one way to do something, you know that
they're too dogmatic.
Exactly.
And they're too in one thing, which some people are. And sometimes it works for some, but for most of us, we should experiment with things ourselves and see how things feel to work out what's the best for us. Yeah, so I think that finishes nicely for that first one. So our second one, it moves on quite well from that one. And should everyone deadlift and squat to build strength? So I want to kind of hand this over to you, but I do think that the definition of strength is the key thing. So what is strength? And I guess it bases on the individual, right?
Yeah, and I keep going back to it, but what is their function? Like, what do they want out of their training? And like for strength, what situations do they want to have strength in? Is it, when they move house, they can pick up the heavy box? Is it they compete in a strength sport? Is it they compete in running and they need to have a different kind of strength there? Everyone should deadlift and squat. I think squatting and hinging are fundamental movement patterns that are applicable in everyday life. So if you think about avatars for, a young athlete just starting to train or an elderly individual, to retain basic functions like getting in and out of a chair, on and off the toilet, picking something up off the floor, some variation of squat or hinge, should we say, instead of deadlift, will be useful for them to retain those fundamental movement patterns. If we're looking at somebody who performs a very specific sport, the importance of those movements that they give is up for debate, I think.
True, and I guess where a lot of people get fixated on is the fact that it needs to be a barbell, and that's, I think, the biggest thing, because there are even if we just break it down to say deadlift to build strength, yes, it's a great movement for building like big time strength. Yeah. However, there's more than just a conventional barbell deadlift. Exactly. Yes, okay, you've got sumo deadlifts and stuff like that, but you've got the trap bar where the weight's loaded around you. You've got kettlebells. You've got anything where you're hinging from your hip and picking it up off the floor is a deadlift.
Yeah.
Just like
even not off the floor.
Exactly. Yeah. You can do. Obviously, when you're talking about rack pulls, you're taking away the tension of the bar. So it's a funny one, rack pulls, because it's like they're great for building your back. Like they're an amazing exercise, but I would definitely class them. I'd personally class them towards a bodybuilding exercise where they isolate the back. It's hard because obviously as a deadlift, it's the top portion of the deadlift, but your deadlift, you have to take the weight out the bar yourself. Yeah. So you have to load your body, whereas when you've got a rack pull, you're pulling it with the load already taken out. So you're just pulling it from a fixed point. Yeah. So it's just different. As say if you're doing like a block pull, you probably won't block pull the same as you can rack pull. I guarantee you can rack pull more than you can block pull. Yeah. Because of that loading through the bar, it's just different. But I think it does carry over, and the most important bit is everyone should hinge, shall we say, rather than deadlift, and everyone should squat. But not everyone has to use a barbell to get that stimulus, and that's the number one thing that I want everyone to take away, especially from this myth, is look beyond the barbell, because the barbell is a great bit of kit, but use it as part of your toolbox rather than the only way.
Yes.
So And again, that kind of carries on nicely to this part, which I want to kind of discuss a bit like CrossFit and stuff like that, because muscle confusion, that's a real classic. Like, oh, you got to confuse the muscles. You got to do constantly like change reps, do this, do that, just to build size. And don't get me wrong, you especially when you look at say CrossFitters and some of the high end athletes look stacked, right? And they're in unreal shape, and they are constantly varying their intensities and movements and stuff like that, right? However, a lot of their training is the fundamentals. They're building their strength and foundations consistently. Look at someone like Matt Fraser. He had a lifetime pretty much of weightlifting. Yeah. He did those same 2 lifts over and over and over again, which is why he's extremely proficient in it. Yeah. So that was his progressive overload. So he didn't do mixed modal training all the time. This kind of then goes into, personally, when we talk about CrossFit, it's so accepting to everyone, which is why I think it's great, because it adds a community, which we talk about with like mental side of things, but it also adds different ways of training which you don't normally think about. Think outside your box. However, if you don't have the prerequisites to move and haven't built your foundational strength, should you go into say a general CrossFit box which just programs say 400 meter run, 21 pull-ups and I don't know, 10 burpees, 4 rounds of time. Should you be doing that? Have you got the condition in your muscles to say do 21 pull-ups 4 times? That's a lot of pull-ups. Yeah. Forgetting about the kipping version or anything like that, that's a whole different topic. But thinking about that much volume, you're going to be doing 84 pull-ups in a time cap that the coach has decided. Is your body conditioned for that? Yeah. So then when you talk about muscle confusion, I guess that will confuse the fuck out of you, all right? But is that going to be good in long term? Yeah. Maybe if you would have, we constantly talk with, I think that's going to be a real theme of all of us going back to function. Yeah. But if you're going to do 21 pull-ups 4 times, you're going to need to get better at strict pull-ups. You're going to probably need to do some more like negative style pull-ups, so condition like that load going through your body, especially when you introduce kipping. Yeah. Because when you introduce kipping, the load going through your joints, that's why I feel I'm quite prone to injuries, shall we say. But I do think, as I think when we discussed in our first episode where we said about, how you come from a sporting background and I didn't. So I hadn't conditioned my body along the years to be susceptible to all these things. Yeah. And now when I keep putting myself into all these things, my body sometimes like, hang on a minute, I'm not ready for that. And then when it comes to like, CrossFit, when I started CrossFit, I had a background then in powerlifting. I had a background in bodybuilding, so I'd done plenty of curls. Might not show, but I've done plenty of curls. I've done plenty of deadlifting, so I've done so much pulling through my joints. Yeah. So then when I go to kipping, butterfly and all this lot, my joints have kind of taken that already, so they're kind of preconditioned. But I've then, when I get to CrossFit, I'm not going there with the intent to say confuse my muscles. No. So, and even if you don't do CrossFit and you take it into say like the gym setting, there is nothing wrong with being consistent with your training, like progressive overload, getting generally stronger. However, my view on say like when you're creating a program is you should have that foundational strength, like build your movement mechanics in there, and then have fun with the other stuff. Like for instance, if I want to say do an upper body day, right, and I'm going to start my day with bench press because I'm trying to be functional for my sport, powerlifting. Everything after that, I'm going to probably do one accessory that complements the bench press. Yeah. And everything after that, I'm going to make sure I do a push, pull, hit, I'm going to do some arms, and I'm probably going to do some other type of pulling, so horizontal pulling, vertical pulling, right? So one week I might do lat pull down, the next week I might do pull-ups, the next week I might do underhand pull down, close grip, but it's all the same movement. Yeah. And to not get fixated, so I know when I program for people, and I say lat pull down, and they say, the lat pull down was taken up. Well, that's fine. Find something that's similar and do it. Exactly. It's like it's nothing, and we're not trying to confuse your muscles here. We're trying to keep you consistent in going to the gym and having fun. And I think muscle confusion is like as you said, like functional being a buzzword. It was the buzzword of you want to constantly confuse. And for me, confusing muscles are muscles that are not going to progress because they can't find the same stimulus over and over again to progressively get better. Exactly. And if we're doing curls, 1 week with a dumbbell, next week with a cable, it's still the same movement. Yeah. So we're still getting progressively better. Yeah.
It's that principle of specific adaptation to an imposed demand, right? So whatever.
Well, you can say it like that, or you can put it that way, but
It's basically, are you sending a consistent signal to your body to tell it the way that you want it to adapt, and by putting a repeated, consistent stress on your body, it's very clear and unwavering. So you're doing your curls in a variety of different ways. You're basically saying these biceps need to do a lot of work. By being stronger and or bigger, that's going to make that easier next time round. If one day you're doing curls, next day you're doing burpees, next day you're skipping, next day you're running, there isn't a consistent imposed demand, so you're not going to get a specific adaptation. You'll get a non-specific one, which might be what you want. Yeah. It's not wrong, but once you're clear about what you want, then it determines
I guess that does kind of bring the beauty of, say, why I enjoyed CrossFit, why it suckered me in, basically, because one, it was the community of everyone, it was just such a great environment, and it was, you're always trying to get better at something, because you're never that good at anything, so you're always trying to get better, and unless you then specialise, then that's when it gets boring. And when people specialise, I can't remember who said it, but there was a quote that said, you got to basically be content with being bored, we're doing the same things over and over and over again. That's how you get better, and most people haven't got the willpower to keep doing this. Matt Fraser, again, as the example of doing weightlifting for all those years. Yeah. Do you think he obviously now fine-tunes his technique, make sure he stays strong, but do you think he hammers that? No, he's done all those years of weightlifting. He's now ingrained that movement pattern. Now he's getting better at everything else. Yeah. So I think when it comes to muscle confusion, personally, I think that is a massive myth, and it really should be forgotten about to a degree, and focus on that progressive overload while having fun.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to be too critical, but I'd argue that it's lazy and that you haven't spent the time deciding on what you want to train. Like, if you want to just have fun, actively decide that and be happy to do a random workout all the time.
But don't moan when you're not getting stronger in this or stronger in that, or why don't I look a certain way? It's because you're not directing your training and your mindset towards that end goal.
You haven't committed to...
And I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of, commitment. Because they're going, right, what happens if I don't do well at this? I think that's why I kind of not stopped CrossFit, because obviously I would still like to do bits, but because I was like goodish at everything, but I'm like, do I really want to keep trying to get better at, say, ring muscle ups? Like, do I really want to do the kip swings? Do I want to do the transitions? I just want to stick with the barbell.
Well, the thing is, you know what the cost is. I think that's the other thing about when you're a coach, you know what it takes to get that much better. Yeah. And you can trade off. I know where I am, I'm pretty good already, but to get to the next level is going to take this amount of work. Am I that serious about competing that I'm willing to put
within
that in?
CrossFit?
Yeah, within CrossFit.
And I think unless it's like a fun pairs event or like a team event, then probably no. I'm not looking to go down the individual route. Yeah. But as a powerlifter, I'd like that's a completely solo sport. But I would like to pursue that because I think I have a little bit of something there, so it'd be good fun. Great. But I do think all of this kind of shows that a lot of time when it comes to myths, it's really easy to remember that, you know, we think websites like the Daily Mail or stuff like that, you know, they're gonna be telling the, say, the general public and also trainers when they see stuff on Instagram that they're gonna think, oh, that must be the new thing. Yeah, exactly. Stop looking for the new thing and focus on the foundations and get better. Okay, that's again, I think that even basically was close to what someone else said about keeping those foundations. But yeah, I think that kind of wraps up today's 4 myths. If you did enjoy it, please leave a 5-star review on iTunes. It will help us grow. And if you're watching it on YouTube, firstly, thanks a lot for watching us for that amount of time. But please like, share, subscribe, all that malarkey. Do follow us on Instagram, which you can find us at
ashgrossman.coach.
How do you spell your surname?
Double N on Grossman. 2 N's at the end of Grossman.
Okay. And Rob Stubbs PT. Nice and simple. But apart from that, look forward to our next one. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week.